Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So the stock market hit 25,000 today. Now oftentimes, well, not today, but it's over 25,000. People use the stock market as being this kind of indicator of the health of a nation, the economic health of a nation, which is somewhat insane because stocks are only held by the 80% of the stocks are held by the top 10% or the richest 10%. So it doesn't really affect the rest of the population. Jeff Bezos, and the segue to that, I know that sounds weird, but it's somewhat of a tangent, has over $100 billion. That is an ungodly sum of money for any one person to have. He has over $100 billion. At the same time, in the same country that Jeff Bezos lives, you have human beings being arrested by cops for feeding other human beings. No, that's not hyperbole. The cops in California are locking up people for feeding the homeless. Essentially doing the job that California seems completely incapable of doing. And their solution to this was to lock those people up. Let's take a look at this. An unjust law, 9 charged with feeding the homeless in California. 9 activists with the advocacy group Break the Ban have been charged for feeding the homeless after California City passed a law banning the charitable act following a massive hepatitis A outbreak. The activists were arrested and charged with misdemeanors after they handed out food in Wells Park in El Cajon, California, San Diego County on Sunday. Break the Ban took part in the food sharing event in defiance of the city ordinance, according to KSWB. Break the Ban was not the only homeless advocate in the park. They were joined by Food Not Bombs, according to the San Diego Tribune. If you're going to pass an ordinance after a hepatitis A outbreak, and the ordinance for the most part boils down, and I understand why you would pass an ordinance for something like that. It's like we had an hepatitis A outbreak. We don't necessarily want people feeding the homeless because you may actually pass some kind of foodborne illness. I understand. But you also understand that you have a massive homeless problem. And making a law in no way fixes that homeless problem. You have other human beings who wants to pick up the slack from your failures. Yes, I put this on the failures on the state. If the state does not have the capacity to provide a roof over the citizens' heads of that particular state, and food for the citizens of that particular state, particularly when they're in need or distress or they don't necessarily have the means to get those things on their own, it's a little weird for the state to also turn around and say, we can't provide for the citizens of the state, and we're not going to let you do it either. That's a massive failure. That's a massive failure. Instead of passing that ordinance, what about setting up a food bank? What about setting up an area where anybody in California who doesn't have food, who's homeless, who's deprived of sustenance, can come and actually get something from the state to eat? How about that? I mean, if you're trying to get rid of hepatitis A, you don't do it by passing a goddamn ordinance. If the hepatitis A broke out because somebody was feeding the homeless and something got out and some kind of bad food was passed around, etc., then make sure the food is adequate. Personally, I think you should go farther. I think you should have those people homes. I think you should have somewhere for those people to stay. It is madness that you have somebody living in this country with $100 billion and you have people being locked up for feeding people who don't have anything. Don't even have food. That is massively fucked up, California. This idea that this is supposed to be this liberal bastion. Where's the liberal bastion? In San Francisco, they're using robots to kick homeless people out of their area. Does California, is it inundated with homeless people? Is it that bad in California where California can't deal with the issues that are associated with that state? And they're screaming about single-payer health care. What about screaming about making sure people have food and somewhere to stay? How about that? How about that? That's fucking embarrassing. You're locking up homeless. I guess my point is, of all the solutions to a particular problem, passing an ordinance was not the way to do it. It's like, hey, people can't afford health care. I know, let's just make a law that says people need to get health care. But wait a minute, the problem was people couldn't afford health care. People don't have the capacity to get food. They don't have the capacity to find somewhere to stay. Your responsibility as the state, as the county, whatever, is either to provide food or somewhere for them to stay. Now, I understand that you guys are probably not that lefty in this sense, but fair enough. But I don't necessarily think it's a jump of the shark to at least have a food bank. If you're going to say that the problem for this is that bad food was passed around and so we don't want people to get bad food, let's provide food. Let's provide food. How expensive can it be to just make sure people have something to eat? That's all I'm saying. And is California budget that cash strapped? Open up those marijuana centers, tax shit out of it, use that tax money in order to pay for food banks. There you go. Won't even charge you for it. Won't even charge you for the advice. All I'm saying is, this is horrendous. That's horrendous. A, it's embarrassing for the state. It's embarrassing for that particular county. And I gotta be honest, it's embarrassing for the cops to even go through with that. It's embarrassing for the cops to even go through with it. I'll leave it at that. I'll put the story in. I understand that there's an issue with the hepatitis thing. I understand that they don't necessarily want food being passed around, if that food could be bad and everything else. But certainly they understand that those people are on the street, exposed to the elements, and hungry. And it is really fucking weird that the city's solution to this, and dealing with somewhat of a crisis for their citizens, they're not outraged by the fact that these people are living on the street. They're not outraged by the fact that these people don't have money. No, the problem here is that somebody else was nice enough to give them food. The state of California, this particular county, didn't have the imaginary flexibility or imagination to come up with some other plan as opposed to just creating a bare bones ordinance to lock people up for this process. That's my point. There are more thorough solutions that doesn't necessarily involve trying to put people in prison or put people in jail for trying to fix your fuck-ups. Trying to fix your fuck-ups. I don't know what befell these people in their lives. I have no clue. What I do know is the social safety net that's supposed to be in that liberal bash in California has remarkably failed them. That's what I do know. So I will leave it at that. This one wasn't supposed to be long. Yes, good. This one, good timing. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks guys.